Yeah, so the current state of U.S. politics is still quite messy in the U.S. It's 2013. We just had a large election last year where President Obama pretty much kept the status quo. He won the election quite handedly. The Senate did not change hands. The House of Representatives did not change hands. And here we come up to 2014, and we're in an election year again. It seems like we just did this, but of course, every 2 years in America we had another election. Now, this is just for the House and some members of the Senate. But right now it's shaped up to be like in a pretty tight race again in many key states. I think the House of Representatives will most likely stay in Republican hands. The Senate could go either way. It's still too early to tell, but still I think that for the foreseeable future, there's still going to be quite a lot of partisan gridlock in Washington, D.C. Yeah, I think this is a very astute point that basically the Democratic Party in the U.S. is much more right now the large party, or the large tent party. They have much more diverse voter base, young people, immigrants, young entrepreneurs, things like that. The Republican Party in the U.S. used to be known as the grand old party, the large tent party, which really attracted lots of different ideals and ideas. And right now, they are very split and having a very difficult time attracting some of these new generational voters. And to really win these big elections, stateside elections in the Senate, and also the next presidential election, they're going to really have to diversify their voter base much more, and really engage some of these communities that they have not engaged in the past. They really have to move back more towards, not necessarily the middle, but to be the pro-business political group again. Because right now they're not seen as being very good for the economy. And I also think they have to really reinvigorate the Latino base of the Republican Party and bring new people on. Right now in the U.S., the fastest growing population is the immigrant Latino age groups between 18 and 25. So this is a huge demographic of the United States that really have to reach out to and bring on board, or else they will not do well in the future. I think TTIP is certainly a popular issue in the U.S., and the Obama administration is very keen to get it done. And it's a bipartisan issue as well. We see both Democrats and Republicans really supportive of it. One issue is that, the Obama administration has been clear that they're trying to pivot towards Asia, and part of that pivot is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is another big trade deal with some of the Asian countries. So I think they're quite keen to get that finished first, which really kind of puts TTIP on a bit of a back burner, which is unfortunate because it's quite an important trade deal. In the U.S. also, there are a few factions of the political parties that are a bit against trade deals, but overall, if it was brought to a vote in the Senate and the House, I think it would pass. There are a couple issues that some members of Congress and the administration are not really wanting to include in the TTIP negotiations, financial services being one of them, which is a key issue that I think the European community would like to see included because it's such an important area of trade for both the U.S. and Europe. Well, I think Christie is obviously the front runner for the Republican Party right now, and it's quite obvious that he is really a charismatic personality. He is a Republican governor. He has very high approval ratings in a very blue Democratic state. So he's obviously has an agenda and a personality that people really like. It's not really seen yet whether or not that will be able to translate to some of the more southern and more conservative states out west. Obviously, he's not as social conservative as some Republicans would like, but I think he is a strong contender for the 2016 race right now. Jeb Bush, George Bush's younger brother, is also quite a charismatic contender for the Republican Party. He was governor in Florida a few years ago, and he is seen as another strong personality for the party to really move it into more moderate, pro-business, back to its real roots sort of candidate. He has suggested that he has not really interest in it yet, but there's quite a few years, so he could run still. Well, this upcoming year is going to be quite busy in D.C. because once again it's an election year. Obviously, we're going to be quite keen on some of the big races coming up. So those are key swing state races such as South Dakota, West Virginia, some of those states that could go either way. Obviously, there's some issues in the Senate right now and the House that are still being worked through as well. Tax reform is one of them. The Senate Finance Committee and the House Ways and Means Committee, both headed by different Republican and Democratic members, are quite keen on getting some sort of tax proposals done this year that could really kind of adjust the corporate tax rates in the U.S., broaden the base, and also adjust the very old and very confusing U.S. tax code. So that's something that Cicero will be looking at as well. And of course, Dodd-Frank is still being implemented too. Although it's several years old at this point, there are a lot of big rulemakings that come out and some issues that still have to be dealt with. The Financial Stability Oversight Council is still going to be doing some SIFI designations. The Federal Reserve will still be working on capital liquidity and leverage ratio requirements. Those are big issues that we'll be keeping track of as well.